Okay, this video is going to be obviously, you will be in front of your seller as you go over the details of this, but a lot of times we can put some of the stuff together before we are with them, and especially now with the ongoing changes with compensation. So this video will probably change in due time as we learn more about how to handle that and negotiate that. So you'll go into SkySlope and go to Forms. There'll be another video, and you'll pull up entering in information for a new listing. You click on the seller, and then you'll be able to populate the information from your seller, their names, email addresses, and things like that with the address, so that when you do click on for the exclusive right to sell, a lot of this stuff will already populate. I'm using a property that I just had listed and sold, and so this would automatically go into here. So this is, in this case, it's just one person is selling a property, so her name goes here. This will populate the Home Charlotte / eXp Realty as the firm representing the seller. So as we go down here, that's going to go in there. So then we would put in, we check this box, the effective date shall be the date that this agreement has been signed by both parties. So we just click that. And I'm just going to put a date in here that kind of using like January 1st is what we're going to list it. And just, so I just put this date in here, and you can obviously change this. I'll just make it look like, let's put it in for the 3rd here. So then you just put in, that's when the agreement shall terminate. So the property information will be put in here. Also populate all this, the street address, the city, the zip code. So just double check all that here. It's got the county as United States. So that's not the case. So put that in there so that would show up here as Mecklenburg. So that's just the general information there. And then things you would put in here, a lot of this information. I always keep a copy of the tax record so I can get a lot of information from that. So I like to go back and forth and pull up any information I need. Like in this case here, we see that it is, this is things like, we're going to get the parcel ID right here from there. We're going to get the legal description. If it's on a particular lot, you know, all that information here is lot 62. So we can get that information. But so I just go back and forth with this. So as I'm filling this out, so here I already did that. So put in lot 62. The subdivision is Idlewood Brook. The plot map information, or the plot for the financing, can show you right here. I'll kind of go down and show you where that is. So this is where you get like the deed and the pages from right here. So I put this in here, and the one, there's another area that you can put the one that was previous sold. Just helps with putting things together when you make the description. So moving along here, other things that you're going to need to know is, if there are any items that are leased that the property does not own, you have to disclose that. In this case, there is nothing that's leased. If there's any items that do not convey, like they have a special light fixture that was gifted to them from, some antique thing they want to keep, well, you have to disclose that here as well, put it in the MLS. So this is where you would mark that. So in a case like personal property, like a refrigerator, if they don't plan on taking the refrigerator, you would write that and put it in here saying that this does following personal property present on the property on this date, that the offer shall be transferred to the buyer and no value. Sometimes they put refrigerators, and if somebody's not wanting to take their washer and dryer, you would add them here as well. If they're going to have a seller is agreeing to pay for a home warranty, that would be added when they make the offer. You would click that here. In this case, we're saying it does not, so we put that here. If they're going to have one, you would put the price in here and the fee. The next column would be number 6 is listing price. So in this case, this is a property we listed for $275,000. You put that in right here. And then the terms of the following, that are they going to accept cash? In this case, they're going to say they're going to accept an FHA. They are going to accept VA, and they're going to accept conventional. You can check other things. If this is in the USDA area, more of a country property that offers those loans, you would have to check that to see. But in this case, we're not checking that box because it's not available. They're not going to do a loan assumption. In this case, this person owned it outright. And if they were going to be interested in doing seller finances, we would check that box. But, we really haven't been seeing much of that with. These are just usually the normal things you would check off. So this is where we get into fees, compensation. You would not put any of this in here until you are in front of talking with your seller, just disclosing this information, because obviously this is after you have the conversation about agency relationships, with the ongoing litigation with buyers' compensation and who pays for that. This is an ongoing thing, but as right now, I just want to give you the up-to-date thing. So here we're saying with the seller has agreed that we're going to list their property for 6%. 6%. In normal cases, we're saying that's going to be 3% of that's going to go to the listing agent side and 3% to the buyer's agent side. So we just put 6% here. Now, if this property goes beyond the expiration date and you are still trying to secure a potential buyer for this property, well, we write in here that if nothing's occurred and you have up to 30 days after the expiration date, it's like a protection period. So in case something were to happen, you're covered. So you get that extra month. Once again, that's something you can negotiate. Other things that are important on this is to look at, this is where we get into the cooperating with sub-agent representing the seller. Right now, we put 0 in here. This is just for our form. We're going to do it for 3%. This is just more or less talking about how we're cooperating with the buyer's agent. This is where you would check this. And then in this case, we were saying you put in 3%. So we'll discuss that in more detail. I'm just trying to give you the general idea of how to fill this form out. Other things that are important to go down on this, we're not checking any of these boxes. This is just talking about how buyer letters to seller to entice the seller to choose their offer. That's kind of been, we're not doing that anymore. So you just disclose that. This is just saying that they understand what seller acknowledged that the seller has been made aware of each firm's duty describing in the above paragraph here. And this has to do with something you look at and read. So right now I don't want to go into detail with this, that we will have to discuss that in meetings, but make sure that you get your seller to sign this after explaining this to them. We aren't going to do the cumbrance of marketing here. You're going to want to have them sign the public market, where the firm shall submit pertinent information concerning the property to any listing service for which the firm is a member of. So we're going to do public marketing. So that's the firm. That's where you're going to have them initial. If they're going to do it coming soon, you're going to check this, but we have forms for that too that disclose how that works. So we're going to do it coming soon. You make sure you click that. We're going to click here if you're going to put a sign in front of the property. If you're going to do open houses, you click this that then explain how open houses work. Click this because we're going to be advertising. If you can do any special advertising other than on the internet, in most cases we check this. This is for internet advertising. So all those boxes should be checked. And we're not going to do an exclusive office listing, so you don't check that box. If we're putting a lockbox on there and we have to get authorization that the seller is wanting us to do that, so we check this. We let them know that our firm does not hold earnest money, so you check this box here. I guess I'll just check it as I go down here. Then you ask, okay, how long has the seller owned this property? If they owned it for more than a year, then you check this box. If they've owned it for less than a year, you check this box. And if they don't even yet own the property, but we're not going to be dealing with that stuff. So you have to have this conversation. Are they currently in, or are they under bankruptcy protection, or are they contemplating? So it's either is or is not. So if they're not in bankruptcy, you check that box. If they're not contemplating, then you check that box. This has to do with manufactured homes. You have to put all the VIN numbers and stuff like that. Let's just, here's the other access. The property has legal access to a public right of way. It's accessed by a private easement or other. Then you have to mark that. So you say is not or is. In this case, it is not. We check that box. So this for manufactured homes. If there is a homeowners association, you have to enter all this information in. And when you're with the client, make sure you're getting all the contact information and what the amount that they pay, how it's paid quarterly, monthly, annually. So all that's very important to make sure we have all that information. So all that goes in here. And this one here is seller is or is not a foreign person as defined by the Foreign Investments Real Estate Tax Act. So that's something that they are or they're not. There is not. You check this box. Here we have to disclose them. We're going to give them a sample, form of just an offer to purchase and contract so they can understand when you're going to be helping them present an offer. So make sure that you review that with them. So you check this box. And we have to make sure that we go over the receipt of the sample copy of the professional service disclosures so we go over all that with them and check that box after you've gone over that. We determine from them whether this property is in a floodplain or not. If it is, you check this box. If it's not, you check this box. Do your research on that to make sure. Sometimes they don't know. If this property is synthetic stucco, has this property been clad previously, either in whole or part with an exterior insulation? So if it is, you have to look further in. If not, we don't have to worry about that. Do they have a termite bond on the property? If so, you check this. If not, you check this. And if they do, get the information, from the termite company. If they were to be transferred, get that information. Company that's doing it. Is there any current liens? Which means, is this property currently under a mortgage? If so, we need to get all that information up front so there's no surprises. All this has to be recorded and put in. So if it is or if it isn't, if not, if they own it outright, you click this box. Otherwise, if you click this one and it is, get all that information. Very important. they have a second loan, or if there's a deed of trust or mortgage, property security, an equity line. So you need to ask those questions and get that information so there's no surprise. A lot of times sellers aren't even aware that they have an equity line, or aren't aware that the fact that an equity line has to be paid off at closing. It's important to ask these questions so we are sure that there's no surprises prior to getting to the closing table, because you're going to give them a seller's net sheet at the time of this, so those questions are going to be asked a couple of times. So just make sure you properly fill this information in. If not, it's NA. So is there a lease on this property? Is there subject to anything? So you'll find that out. Is the property being managed by someone else? Is there property management involved in this? So you find that out as well to disclose it. Has this property had an FHA appraisal done within the last 4 months prior to the effective date? If not, you just check this. Are there any special assessments? Are they aware that they're doing some special road work or putting sidewalks in? Ask those questions. If not, then you would just put in here, none. Okay, moving right along. Is there a fuel tank? Some of the older homes, sometimes they don't even know that. Ask the questions to see if there might be a fuel tank that's buried underground. If so, we have to disclose that. If not, check that. And then once again, we get into what you know about the tank. Is it owned outright? Are they currently still using it? Or just all those things. So all these would be checked. If not, you just can put NA and get past all this. And then if they're doing refilling, if there's oil in it, but, so there are, cases that this happens. So off-site, or is there a separate septic lot, boat slip, garage, parking space, storage unit, any of these kinds of things? If so, we got to make sure we disclose that. And then in the sale of property, is that included, or if not? So just important questions to ask. Is the seller warranted the property is not in violation of any law, ordinance, or permit? If not, just put NA in here. Okay. Just assuming it's not. So in this case, that wasn't the case with this property. Seller represents that the seller has the right to convey the property. There are no current or no circumstances that would prohibit the seller from conveying fee simple marketing. So if it's clean, then you just put NA in. If there's something they need to disclose, and we have to have that conversation before we move forward with listing this. Okay, home inspection. Seller is advised to obtain a home inspection for the purpose of evaluating the condition of the property in order to enhance its marketability. You ask a homeowner, and you go over this in detail, if they would be interested in having a home inspection done at their cost, where then, they can see all the items on that list and we can correct them. And it's a good marketing plan. It's not used a lot, but just please understand we have to ask that question, whether the seller agrees or does not agree to have one done. So in this case, I'm saying they didn't. So any additional terms of this, then the following additional terms and conditions shall also be part of this agreement. If they have special things they want to discuss, we would put them in here at this time. Dual agency. In most cases, we want to have that we're going to want to offer this as a dual agent, especially with being part of BXP. We have a large network of BXP agents. So many a times, which is a good problem, is we can market ourselves as being an EXP agent. We're going to want to make sure that they're allowing us to represent them as a dual agent. So in this case, we can mark it down here. I'm just trying to keep up with it on the forms I have. Okay. So yes, we want to authorize this part here that you want them to sign this or to initial this, that seller does authorize. Check this part. But this, once again, this gets filled out in front of them because you're explaining that. Authorize the same individual agent to represent both the seller and the buyer in this transaction. And you can not have that as well, but you can also have another EXP agent. So we recommend to do that. So we're not going to have them sign the exclusive. And then the other stuff on this one would be pretty much you just put all their information in here, as well as you write in all your information with your license numbers and the firm phone numbers and things, all that kind of good stuff. And pretty much after that, that is really it on this contract for right now. So Thank you very much. And any questions, we'll talk.